tonight.
One more.
I felt so thankful.
Yeah.
I don't have one for
Yeah,
That's
like I said, that was a goal.
Oh,
Sammy, can you verify that you can hear me all right?
Yes, we can, Pat.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so I want to
I
call.
can tell you this HD camera is the most vivid thing I've ever seen. I can see everything on all your faces, all your smiles.
Thanks, Pat. That's Josh's new toy. So, all right, we're ready with
Yes.
Charlene?
Sorry. Okay, so we're going to call our meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. So first, for the board, we have some board business, and then we'll go through the information here for the appeal. So first, the election of officers. Do we have a nomination?
Can I nominate no changes?
I'll second that.
8:30, but I would.
Discussion?
Okay, so
We love you, Charlene. Motion and second.
I think you all talked behind my back. Okay, so the election of officers, we have a nomination for no changes. Do I have a second?
I seconded it.
Okay, awful fast. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will leave the board members as they are. That's okay. The vice and the
Thank you all.
secretary as well. Okay, so approve the minutes from January 11th of 2023. A while ago.
Minutes?
What did we do?
Oh. I don't
See
think
them
we
there.
have the minutes.
I didn't see them in the packet. Let me,
Actually, then we'll go to Joel's computer.
they're there, I just can't open them.
I
So,
can't either.
Can we table the minutes until the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have the minutes, so we will move that point to our next meeting. So at the next meeting, we will review the minutes from January 11th of 2023. So do we want to go with what's before us now, or do we want to start with 001?
I think it's either way.
Okay. I'll start with 001. Okay. So I'm going to read some information first. So our rules of procedures for the Housing Board of Appeals. Per a motion, we had a second and a unanimous vote of the members of the Housing Board of Appeals in attendance on the public hearing December 5th, 2011. The Housing Board of Appeals hereby adopts the following as the rules of procedures for conducting of appeals before the board. So we will take a recording of those present for the hearing. So I would start with myself, Charlene Nicoletto, and I'm the president of the board. Would you like to go next?
I'm Rich Foley, I am a deputy code official for Building and Neighborhood Services. I am the rental inspector for the city of Clinton.
Tammy?
I am Tammy Johnson. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Clinton.
Okay, and then
I'm Tammy Evansberger, a board member. Lou Ray, board member.
Bob Greenrich, board member.
Paul Doderick, board member.
Tom Hanson, board member.
and
Oh,
Jim Brown, board attorney.
and we've got some people in the back too.
Rich Johansson, building official for the city of Clinton.
Okay.
Eli Voss, Deputy Building Official, City of Clinton.
Jeff Chapman, Fire Marshal.
And then, would you like to
Oh,
give?
I'm sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
away, code enforcement officer.
Okay. And would you like to give?
Yeah,
your
my name is Daniel James. I'm here to represent Lions Creek Apartments.
Okay.
Just, Danny, would you spell your last name for me?
NJEIM.
E-I-M?
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, okay, you're a new name, Danny?
NJ.
He's listed
Okay.
in the paperwork.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then, would you two like to give your names?
Nicole Martin, I'm a tenant up at Lions Creek.
Okay,
Joshua Martin, a tenant up in Lions Creek.
okay, thank you. And for purposes of the board, we do have one board member who is not here today. However, we do have a quorum. So we've all gone around the room and given our names, so that includes the board members, city staff, petitioner, and others in attendance for the hearing. So before we go any farther, do any board members have a conflict with making a decision on this appeal before us today? I do not. Okay. So now the authority of the board, I have an opening statement that's given in the city of the staff report, which I believe you might
Yes, I do have.
have as well. Okay. Oh, hi. Come on in. We've gone around and introduced ourselves, so now I'll ask you two to do the same.
I'm Cody Steffen. My sister's Ashley Murray. She can't attend. She's got a bunch of kids, so I'm here to just see what's kind of happening.
Okay.
As well as we are.
And this is my fiance Tiffany Housingay.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. So now I am about to read the opening statement that was given in the staff report. So a summary of the case. On May 8th, 2017, a dangerous building notice was served on the owners of 2604 North 4th Street. Since then, several more notices were served, but dangerous buildings continue to be present at the complex. On February 11th, 2023, Lions Creek Apartments LLC was found guilty in Clinton County District Court for failure to abate dangerous buildings located at 2604 North 4th Street. The district court issued a judgment requiring Lions Creek Apartments LLC to remedy all dangerous buildings. On September 14th, 2023, Lions Creek Apartments LLC was held in contempt of court after failing to remedy all dangerous buildings as previously ordered. On February 19th, 2024, City Attorney Lynch Dallas PC sent a notice and order to vacate property and revocation of occupancy permit to Lions Creek Apartments LLC as allowed under City of Clinton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 155.15 BA. So, I just wanted to remind everyone, this is not a court, so we'll be able to engage in discussion accordingly. There won't be any cross-examination. Everyone will be allowed to ask questions and give their information as well. So first, we will ask presentation of the facts by the city staff. So I don't know if that's going to be,
Yes, that'll be me.
okay.
So again, my name's Rick Foley. I am a Deputy Code Official for the City of Clinton. I'm not going to go through the whole analysis because there's several pages. My thought would be is just kind of highlight some of the things that we're going to be discussing today. So again, on April 4th, 2017, my office conducted a rental inspection, biannual rental inspection at 2604 North 4th Street. During this inspection, I found several buildings that were considered dangerous as defined under Chapter Code 150. Excuse me. Reports were provided to the property owner at the time, which would have been North End Holdings, on May 8th, 2017. My office met with representatives of the property owner, which would have been at the time Property Maintenance PMI. During that, we were provided them with information, we provided them with copies of the code, and we provided them with information regarding those dangerous buildings. On April, so let's back up for a second. There was a plan submitted at that point in time. They were going to make some repairs, do some other things. April 9 of 2019, Code Official Mike Harmon served property owners of Lions Creek with a notice that those buildings that I identified in 2017 were still dangerous, had not been abated as required in those notices, and that continued work would need to be done at the property to bring those properties into compliance. January of 2021, again, we served another notice, reference building 23, 24, and 25 being dangerous buildings. There was a lot of communications back and forth between the city and the property owners. I'm not going to go into that great detail because it's all laid out in the analysis. On May 5th, 2021, there were some final notices served regarding work still not being completed. On October 14th, 2021, representatives of the City of Clinton met with Danny, and during that meeting, there were several things discussed. At the conclusion of that meeting, Tammy sent out a notice of agreement of a plan that was going to be followed regarding repairs to 2604 North 4th Street, several buildings. That plan is detailed in your staff analysis regarding repairing all the buildings up there. January 26, 2023, a municipal infraction was issued due to the fact that that plan not being followed and repairs not being completed as agreed upon. And then as covered in the opening statement, on August 4th, 2023, the Clinton County District Court held a rule to show cause and found that Lions Creek was in contempt of the court order that was issued back in January 2023 due to eliminating those dangerous buildings. So September 4th, there was a video conference held. Lions Creek did not attend that video conference, and the district court found Lions Creek was in fact in contempt of the court order to abate those dangerous buildings. At that point in time, the city reviewed all actions, everything that's taken place since 2017 all the way up until August of 2023. And at that point in time, the city determined that the most appropriate action to take would be as outlined in Chapter 155-15, which allows the city to revoke an occupancy permit for a property that fails to abate a dangerous building, which is outlined in your staff report. When we looked at that, we looked at several different factors. We also took in the fact that on August 5th, 2023, there was a structure fire at 2604 North 4th Street, Building 15. It was identified that that fire was an unapproved occupied unit. So in other words, that unit was not approved to be occupied by the City of Clinton. During the fire investigation, it was identified that there were no fire alarms or smoke alarms within the complex, within the apartment to notify the tenants of the fire. We also identified that all the alarm systems within the complex, building 300, building 19, building 15, all the alarm systems were in trouble mode and were deficient because they had not been inspected as they normally are supposed to be every year. We also looked at some other factors. So at that point in time, Lions Creek was taken to court for renting an unapproved unit and not maintaining the fire alarm systems. There was a hearing held, and during that hearing, they were found guilty of violating code regarding occupying an unapproved unit and not having the correct or required smoke alarms. So we took that into consideration when we looked at the revocation. So again, the revocation is for 1 calendar year as defined under Iowa Code under City Ordinance Chapter 155-15. And the code specifically states that it's to be no less than 1 calendar year, which is what the notice stated. So we asked the board to support that revocation due to the reasons outlined within the staff report, due to the inability or unwillingness of Lions Creek LLC to abate dangerous buildings as agreed upon. And again, I apologize, I went over a lot of stuff really quick, but I wanted to just give an overview because the staff report was, I think, 14 or 15 pages long.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
like to summarize a little bit on the heels of that, if I might. So, I'm not going to add to anything Rich said. I think that was a pretty good rendition of the history here. One thing I would note that in the summary of the case, we didn't mention the second of the 2 municipal infraction cases, but Rich did mention it. So I would ask the board to take note of that. And you'll see in your packet materials provided that there's not 1 but 2 municipal infractions. And then there's also a 3rd court proceeding, which was contempt on the 1st municipal infraction. As we stand here today, the defendant is in contempt of the 2nd one as well. The city just hasn't done anything. Instead, Rich decided to go ahead and revoke the occupancy permit because that was a more immediate need. The only point that I would like to make to the board is that a court of law has already ruled twice in favor of the city on all these violations after submission of evidence to the court. And then the court then, in addition to that, ruled that they were in contempt of court. So any decision that the board makes, we would just urge you to remember that where a court of law has ruled, the city is subordinate to that, and the city is subject to those court orders as much as the defendants are. And so I think all Rich is doing by revoking the occupancy permit is not only following the Iowa code, or the city code, excuse me, on revocation of the occupancy permit, which is expressly permitted in our code under, I'll just tell you, this is Code of Ordinance 155.15BA, revocation of occupancy permit. And the criteria for that is when the housing inspector finds that there is a failure to comply with an order to abate a dangerous building. Well, we have that, not only an order by us, but by the district court as well. The second criteria is failure to comply with the suspension of a rental permit. All right, you know, that too has been an issue and has been noted by the court and ordered by the court. More than one basis for a rental permit suspension within 2 years of the reinstatement of a permit that has been suspended. Again, same issue. And then the rental permit shall be revoked for not less than 1 year. So we don't get a lot of latitude there under the city code. So all we're asking you to do is follow the city code and follow the law here. And let the process play out. You know, if defendants have other arguments, they're more than welcome to make them, and they can try to comply with Rich and see if Rich would be willing to rescind that occupancy permit at some point down the road if they comply. But we would just urge you to follow the district court's rulings in this matter and be consistent with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So now,
Yeah.
do you have a
Thank you
presentation of
for
X? Yes.
thank you for having me here. To my understanding, over the last half a year, we've been working to comply with whatever your department has been asking us to do. Is that correct?
I can't confirm or deny that.
Okay.
I have not conducted an inspection out there since October.
Okay, but to my understanding, we've been having we've been having all the repairs done on the fire on the fire detector, the fire alarm, and we don't have any apartment that is currently occupied with no permit. Your department has conducted several inspections, and we followed the list of all the demands, all the requirements that were needed to get these apartments up to code. And in regards to the building 23, 24, 20, 25, I think, we did do our part when it comes to covering the property with plywood as you requested, to prevent anyone from entering those properties that were condemned before we bought them. And we repaired the roof. I know we were late on a few things, and we've had a lot of issues finding a property manager that would stay in the property, because the building is not generating any money. I need to talk about money just on the side. I'm not justifying violating the code through that, but it's been too difficult to invest in the property when the property doesn't have as much as demand as we anticipated. So in order to maintain it and to keep it going, we decided to focus on what we had already. So instead of going to building 23 that's been vacant for I don't know how many years, and doing the repair, doing the remodeling in that building, we secured it, we secured the roof, we secured the first floor as requested, and we kept focusing on what we had to deal with in terms of current tenants, in terms of general maintenance inside and outside. When it comes to landscape, it's a demanding, it's a big building and it's demanding. So we were working, again, to my understanding, we were working hand in hand with the code department to bring those occupied units to code. And I think we managed to do all of that, except for the outside details like sulfate around the roof, stuff that required a good weather. So we were working together, I believe, until we received this notice, and we didn't expect this notice to be presented.
Right. Well, so if it's all right if I add some.
Yes.
So some of the things that we looked at, for example, is Building 15. Building 15's alarm systems are still in trouble mold. They've never been repaired. That was required in my August inspection. Code says you have 60 days to make those repairs, and the court order that was issued gave until December 26th to make those repairs. So Building 15 is still in trouble mold. AJ Hearns, I believe, and there's a copy of their inspection report in the staff report. They went out and conducted an inspection of the fire alarm systems in Building 15 in November 17th. They provided Lions Creek with a notice of deficiencies. On December 8th, Jeff Chapman's office, the fire marshal's office, sent a follow-up letter to that saying those deficiencies were still in place and they hadn't been repaired. Keep in mind, that's also the building that had the fire. So we had a fire in the building. We have alarm systems, the common hallway alarm systems that were in deficiency. And as of right now, when I checked this morning, there were still no reports in our compliance engine, which is a website that all the agencies enter their information in. There's still nothing in there saying 15 has been inspected and all those deficiencies have been repaired. Building 19 was repaired. Building 19 was, my office started receiving calls. Building 19 was without hot water for about a month and a half.
Yes, we were.
During that month and a half without hot water, the tenants were communicating with management about when the repair was going to take place. Ultimately, there was a water heater installed. When we went out to do an inspection on that water heater, we found the alarm systems in Building 19, again, were in trouble mode, and again, were not functioning correctly. So Building 19 is now back in violation because the alarm systems are in trouble mode. So yes, we did go out there. There was some activity. There was repairs in occupied apartments, but unfortunately, we didn't see that same type of repairs taking place in the dangerous buildings. And what we had to look at is, example would be, is there are now if you look at the plans, there are tunnels through all those buildings. Now we are starting to see collapsing of those tunnels. Currently, we have one collapsed and open section of tunnel between two of the dangerous buildings. We also have an access road that you can see as you drive down the access road, you can see one of the tunnels are starting to drop a little bit more. So we also have concern with some of the roadways. Over the last 2 weeks, Building 23 has been found unsecured. I called and I was trying to get a hold of Jennifer Haviland, who my office was told was the manager. Ultimately, I was able to talk to a gentleman who told me he was out of state and that there was no management on site, but there was maintenance, and he would have maintenance go over and secure the building. I've also had reports of Building 14 is open. There's a plywood on one of the doors to Building 14 has been pulled away. So even though those buildings were secured, we're still finding them open at times. So we had to look at that and the fact that all of our tenants that are occupying Building 15, Building 19, Building 300, Building 100 have to traverse these dangerous areas to get to their apartments. So that's kind of what we looked at also when we were looking at the relocation, and the fact that we had a court order ordering the demolition or those buildings be removed. There are several images. Those were taken by drone 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago, and it shows you the state of the property. That was a drone flyover conducted by the Clinton trained drone operator with the Clinton Police Department.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to revoke their license for 1 year, but to give you the option to continue the revocation if you deem it necessary.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I just have one question,
Yes.
Dean. Thank you for providing, your company provided the letter you did, but the only question I have is the letter came to the city, which came to us. Sam Kay, in fact, said that a different person would be representing here at the hearing, and we were prepared, I was prepared to hear from LaShawn Smith. Can you explain why you're here and she's not? If the letter indicated she was going to represent you?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that we've had a lot of issues with managing the property when it comes to finding a property manager. That now we hired a new property manager from Clinton 2 years ago. We were in the process of discussing the employment with him over the last couple of weeks. We have a large company, and we have people that are in charge of hiring or following up on all the notices, all the violations, and everything related to this property. Like Shonda was supposed to be in charge of all of that, but unfortunately she's no longer with us because when I got here, I discovered so many notices that weren't being forwarded correctly to our office. Now when you're talking about the tunnel collapsing, this is something completely new to me. When you're talking about like some other stuff, like I know Building 15 is now vacant.
The last report I had, which was within the last week, there's still somebody living in Building 15.
Today they're living there.
I have not received any correspondence from your office stating that Building 15 has been vacant. Every time my office has been up there, there have been people living in 15, so I have no confirmation.
Okay.
Either way. Yeah.
This is another argument to provide you with the answer
Well,
for
kind
why
of in
Alexander
follow-up to that, I appreciate your remarks and how you can honestly say, as far as you understand. There's a lot of documentation that says something quite different from what you understand. Is there anything that you have more recent from the October that indicates that you have done the things that you have said you've done?
Yeah, so Richard, again, I wasn't here, I was never here, but the records that I could pull out from our company proves that you came out and you inspected units, and then you left without inspecting. I think there was 3 units remaining for your inspection to confirm that we did all the repair, like we did all the upgrades that you required, that you requested. And you were expected to come out on January 11th to conduct a follow-up, another follow-up visit, but you didn't show up.
No, it's not that I didn't show up. I spoke with your office staff almost 2 weeks before that inspection.
Okay.
And they were notified that due to the revocation notice coming out, there would be no reason to come out and do an inspection. So they were notified that that inspection was canceled well before that inspection was to take place.
Okay.
And I actually spoke with Shay about that also. And I spoke with a gentleman who, when he called me, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't understand his name.
Okay.
And then I actually had a conversation with Jennifer Haviland regarding...
Jennifer is no longer with us because this is, I'm not blaming people, this is our fault. This is our fault, and we are paying dearly for these mistakes, for hiring the wrong people to take care of the hiring and the follow-up with the city. A couple years ago, Tammy, and was it 2 or 3 years ago when I came and we did an agreement to do the repairs for roof number 23 and 24 and patching 24, 25. So when I signed on that agreement, I was expecting that our employees, our co-workers would handle it correctly. And I came, I honored my part of the deal for when it comes to the roof. Because I'm the one that would oversee the quality control of any of our properties across the states. But then I left again, thinking that everything was going well. And when I got here a few days ago, and I realized, I went to the office and I saw all the notices that we were not aware of. We had to get rid of Shay, we had to get rid of Jennifer and every person responsible of this miscommunication and mismanagement. Again, I'm not blaming those people. It is our fault because we didn't know how to hire better people. But when we were held in contempt of the court and we had to pay fines, we paid them in full because we know that we did something wrong. I mean, if something happens in a company, the CEO resigns because it's the CEO's fault. Unfortunately, I'm not the CEO, but I know I'm the defendant here, but...
No, you're not the defendant.
Yeah,
this isn't a court of law.
But did you notice any positive change over the last half a year? Without like...
I noticed when I went out and did the August inspection and gave the young lady, and I can't remember her name, gave the young lady a copy of the notice of the inspection. When I came back out in October, there were numerous violations that were abated, repaired, but there were still quite a few more. And I had several conversations with her about making repairs, and she was talking about the struggling of making repairs because of not getting the finances to do them and all those things. I discussed with her, and my biggest concern is Unit 1510 was an unapproved unit that when I did the inspection after the fire had no power. And I noted that and I condemned it.
1510 was the one that
1512 had the fire, 1510 is next to it.
Okay.
1510 was occupied and it didn't have power when I did my rental inspection in August. I condemned the unit. I went back out and the unit had power and they told me that it was all taken care of. I then later found
In
out.
terms of what taken care of?
They had the electrical taken care of, and they identified why the power was out, and so here to find out, the maintenance guy went to the meter and just turned the power back on at the meter after the fire department turned the power off. I went back out in October, that same unit 1510 was still occupied and still without power. So there was some things being repaired. Yes, you are 100% correct. There were things being repaired, but at the same time, there was a lot of issues. Did your office receive the notice from my office reference you not being in good standings because none of your fees or fines and stuff were being paid? And your fees and fines weren't paid till actually I served Lions Creek with a notice to pay them. And then I got our office got a phone call wanting to know how much the fees were to get it paid. So those weren't paid until after I had to serve notice of suspension. And then, yes, they were paid, yes.
Okay. Yeah, but again, like we were kept in the dark for this whole period of time because again, like I can't get around it. Like I can't avoid blaming that one person, but I'm not gonna put this whole thing on that one person. We are taking the responsibility for giving the mantle for people that don't deserve to have it. Like, it's been too difficult, and how many managers were hired here throughout the last 3 years when I was away? How many managers did you have to meet up with to
I know
explain
of
the process
5.
to?
I know of 5.
And the
Five.
other thing, Danny, is though too, we've sent numerous letters over the court order of the 3 buildings. You've repaired one of the 2 with 2 left. And yes, you've hired people, they're not working out, but yet on our end, we've asked for other contact information and we have nothing but the address up there. We have nobody else to reach out to.
I know.
We don't know anybody else. We have no
I know,
phone
I know,
numbers.
I know.
So, I mean,
I get a photocopy of an email stating that Jennifer Haviland is now my manager. And then yesterday, a gentleman comes to my office.
Look at my copies as
Yep.
well. My copies are a copy of a copy. They're trying to collect whatever because
Yeah.
everything was being mishandled.
Right, so
I'm
yesterday I
hoping-
had a gentleman come to my office and hand me a sheet of paper and say, my name is Richard Stapp, I'm the new manager of Lions Creek. And I have a great conversation with him, but I can't take his word that he's the new manager.
Yeah.
So his information is noted in the system, but at the same time, I can't hold him responsible.
Yeah, I know.
I have nothing from corporate.
I'm aware,
Yeah,
but what?
What you're getting
I didn't
is what
write
I-
this
yeah.
as an argument,
Yeah.
but we are suffering from the same thing. Like this is a copy of a copy as well,
Yeah.
as you mentioned.
So,
But
but if we had another address to mail stuff to, you would get an actual
yeah,
original
we,
and
we,
not.
we actually do have another address, but I'm not sure why nothing was being forwarded there.
Because
I
we've
could
never been
provide
given
it.
it.
We've never been given it, and if it's not given to us, we cannot do
Yeah,
anything
I
with it.
understand. I understand.
And I've had several conversations with the gentleman who answered the phone when you didn't have a manager in the office, and I asked him several times for a different mailing address, and he says, no, just mail it to the office, we take care of it from there. And I've even asked for different phone numbers, and he says, nope, you call that number because it transfers to me. And he wouldn't even give me a phone number that goes directly to him.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Yep, yep.
justify, we are in the wrong. We are in the wrong.
Yeah, I understand. Yep.
I'm not trying to say that we are innocent. But I'm telling you what the problem was. If there's a court order, I would respect it. If there's an order from you guys, I would respect it as well.
so then that leads me to transition. The purpose of the board, and I'm going to read one more statement. The purpose of the board, because to be successful on an appeal, the property owner, I don't know your position, need to prove that the action of code enforcement is illegal or inconsistent with city code requirements, or that the property is otherwise in compliance. So absent such a showing, the appeal would be denied with a written statement sent out. So I would say going forward, it sounds like maybe there was miscommunication, other people, and again, I don't know your position for the facility, but I would suggest, and I would just take it upon myself if this were me, I'm gonna take it over from here and not look for another property manager who would come into a lot of this history And that could be a lot for them to have to shoulder as well, personally. So I would think really, for us to make a decision that would go against the court order, we would have to determine that code enforcement had done something illegal. So, does that make sense?
Unfortunately, we were kept in the dark for so long. I don't have a case to build,
Okay.
but
You have a motion.
I think so. Yes.
But if I may add one more point,
Yes.
the property has seen so many owners come and go. Like every time somebody buys it, they would find some issues and sell it, and then they would buy it and sell it, and buy it and sell it. We are not selling it because we love it, we believe in it, we love how it was built, and I'm aware, when I met Tammy 3 years ago, she told me that there's been a lot of issues when we took over with landscaping, with removal of debris, and so it was always a hiccup from the beginning,
But I
but
think
we didn't
going
give up.
forward,
Pardon me?
but I think going forward,
Yes.
this is the conversation as to what can change, right? And I think we have a plan from the lawyers, but I think before, did you?
A question,
Yes.
could you explain to me the color code on the buildings?
It's in the top corner. Yeah.
So these are the three that were condemned with court orders.
I understand, okay.
And then these are all boarded up, the pink ones.
Okay,
The blue ones are what have occupants in.
okay, that's what I want, so there's 4 of them with occupants in them.
Yes.
And Bob made a motion, wasn't seconded.
Correct.
It's still on the table, yes.
Yes.
Right, okay. Well, to add to Bob's motion, he wants to condemn it for a year to get him back up to it? Is what you,
I wanted to do the revocation.
Yeah.
Because Rich suggested
Yeah.
they revoke their license for a year.
Okay.
To get it up to stuff.
right. Oh, okay, but my suggestion is, why not let them rent these 4 that are up to code? Let them.
They're not.
Because they're not.
The
They're
blue
not.
ones aren't?
No.
I thought the blue ones are.
No, they're
blue
just
ones are
occupied, that doesn't mean they're up to
Oh,
code.
they're occupied, they're
Yep.
not up to code.
Yes.
So these are the ones that we want to focus on. We are focusing on. So when we acquired the property, and without realizing that these 3 were condemned from the previous owner, we're not told of that. But regardless, we wanted to focus on what was already occupied, to bring it up to code, and we were already working on that. And up until you said you contacted our office that we're not following up on the inspection.
So
But didn't we work
Yes,
towards that?
they were-
We did work towards that.
So I think what we will do, because
Yes,
if I
ma'am.
recall, one of the documents said that all of the properties were to be demolished, condemned. However, what I understand is that with the appropriate plan approved by the city, then steps can be taken in the direction that you want to go. Is that right?
Yeah, we're always
Yeah.
willing to work with
Yes.
property.
So
I
that's where you would
appreciate
be.
your answering that. I'm a little farther than needed to, but I appreciate a better understanding. Having known that and recognized what has taken place in the back, and you can't go fix it, you only go forward. I would second the motion that's on the floor, because it is not in a space right now to do that. And
If it will help the board a little bit, I think the way the law works, I think we're encouraging you to revoke the permit for a year. That does not mean that the appellant can't come back to Rich and show him these 4 buildings or whatever it is. We've made them to code, and Rich can reconsider whether he wants to continue the suspension as to any buildings that are to code. But I think this board has in front of it the request to suspend the occupancy permit for a year, and that's what the evidence shows right now. And I would encourage you to pass that and let the process play out, because the applicant can always come to Rich and say, will you narrow your revocation to only include these buildings and not these other ones if your inspection pans out? And I think that's what Rich always does.
that was
So
going to
then
be
let
my
him-
suggestion going forward, is I'm going to second the motion And then if you have the 4 buildings that you're working on, as you focus on that and get things in place to correct the code violations, get an inspection, talk with the city. My experience on this board is they are more than willing to work with a rental person.
I know, mine
So,
as well.
I'll second it and say start and go forward.
But may I add one more thing? Richard, like ballpark, how much effort would it take to bring these 4 buildings up to, like, to the remaining?
That's impossible for me to answer. And the reason it's impossible for me to answer is, a couple years ago, and it's in the staff report, you had an engineer come in and inspect the properties and state these things needed to be done within 4 months to protect the integrities of the properties. That stuff wasn't done. So without,
Which building were you talking about?
23, 24, and 25.
But we did that.
No.
Not everything, no.
What now? What was missing?
Did you see that report?
Yeah.
24 and 25 were not done. 23, building 23 is the only one that was
23 was the only one.
23 was, they were all
dangerous.
ordered, no, they were all ordered to have roof repairs.
We did repair 24,
23.
25. 23 was replaced, but 24, 25 was
So to-
covered and boarded up.
Right, so what you would need
But
to
it
do.
wasn't repaired. Boarding it up did not fix it, that's
No,
why.
but we did patch up the roof.
You did partial, you didn't do everything
You
right.
told it.
So to answer your question is, without an engineer report identifying the state of the properties and what needs to be done, I couldn't answer that. You may get an engineer go in there and the engineer may say you do A, B, C, and D and you're good. Or you may get an engineer that says it's too far gone, you just got to demo it. So without a new engineer report, I can't answer that. That's impossible for me to answer.
Okay, would you like us to work on a new engineer report? Would
That's
that
your
be-
choice. I can't, so understand now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, is what's in front of the board right now is whether or not
For the
our
relocation.
actions at the city level were in compliance with city code. If
Not
once,
only they're in compliance with city code, not only is that true, but the court has said so,
right, so
right? So
Once-
I agree with you, Rich.
Right, so once the board has to make that ruling, once the board makes that ruling, then after that, then would be our opportunity to sit down as a group and figure out exactly what's needed to move forward. But I can't give you an idea of what we're gonna do until the board rules. I don't know how the board is gonna rule until they rule.
I think at this point I need to
Yeah.
make a legal comment for the benefit of the board. What you stated earlier with respect to the necessity, part of the finding has to be, was there any illegal
Right.
actions by the city? And I think everybody's in agreement based on the conversation today. Nobody's arguing here that there's been non-compliance.
Correct.
Or the property is in compliance, and if they could show one of those two things, they might have a defense. But also, legally, the board has the option of modifying the revocation with respect to the entire property. We're talking, there's 18 buildings involved here, and one of the options the board has is to, for example, sustain the revocation, occupancy revocation with respect to 15 of the properties, and with respect to properties that are occupied, the board could grant additional time and put conditions on it, like inspection within so many days, and if they're in compliance, the certificates won't be revoked if they're not. That's an option. I'm not telling you what to do, but I didn't want you to think you didn't have options between either revocation or no revocation. There's an in-between here that's allowed under 155.18 of the city code. And obviously, if you sustain the immediate revocation, that becomes an order, and that requires all of the buildings to be vacated. And you have the right to do that, but you also have options in between.
Yeah, so may I speak? So this is something that I think we would appreciate if if we continue bringing these occupied units up to code, do they have, as far as you know, do they have a occupancy permit? None of them?
None of them.
But how were they occupied in the past then?
Your occupancy permit's expired, and it was not renewed because the property has yet to pass an inspection. That was the purpose for me going out at the last schedule. But
Okay.
since the revocation was being issued, that inspection was canceled. There would be no reason for me to come out to see if the property was in compliance if a revocation was.
Okay, but in case building 14 that's been boarded up for, I would say 20, 30 years, I don't know how long. In case, as you mentioned earlier, one of the boards was pulled out, and other details irrelevant to the occupied buildings, why would we punish the whole building for stuff that is happening in an abandoned property that we're trying to catch up with?
Because if building 14 is entered and somebody starts a fire on building 14, that fire can traverse through the halls into building 15, into building 16, into building 17, into building 18, into building 19, into building 20. All those buildings are interconnected, so if something happens in one of those connected buildings, the fire, and I'm not a fire expert, but we do have people who have that experience. The fire can just travel that whole length of that building because the building is so old and not well maintained. The fire can get up into the ceilings and into that tunnel.
Okay, how about building 1 and 3 that are disconnected from everything else? And 19?
Then you're looking at the dangers of having the tenants coming in through those parking lots where those tunnels are collapsing, or the issues where there's tunnels. So we have to look at everything as a whole complex, because if I say people can continue to live in building 15 and something happens in building 13 and there's a tunnel collapse further, or a building collapse, as a tenant is going down that roadway and somebody gets hurt, then that's an issue. We don't want anybody to get hurt. So I bring up the point that you are correct. You are focusing on these occupied units, but the problem is in focusing in these occupied units, you neglected to take care of these dangers that were here that could kill a tenant or hurt a tenant. You need to focus on those at the same time you're focusing on the occupied. If those dangerous things were removed, then yes, I could say building 15, building 19, building 3, and building 1 could be occupied because the other buildings don't pose a harm. But when the other buildings pose a harm, I have no other option but to say, and right now the buildings pose a harm. It's been ruled that way by the court. It's been ruled that way by my code officials. Those other buildings pose a harm. So until that harm is removed, the city can't say you're okay.
So I think
So
that's...
eliminate that initial harm in those buildings, and then yes, then building 15, building 19, building 3, building 100, those can be occupied again, but unfortunately, you don't have those, you have those dangerous buildings still.
So I'm not trying to waste anybody's time, but I'm sorry, maybe I should have come here 2 weeks earlier to discuss it with you. But you're saying that one of the tunnels is collapsing underneath the road?
No. There's a tunnel between 2 buildings that has collapsed. A section of it's collapsed. There's pictures of that, I believe, in there. There's, on the road behind building 15, you can see where the tunnel has dropped, so the road dips pretty heavily.
Okay.
And if you drive down that road, everybody's seen it. That is a little tunnel that goes through there. So those are all things that pose concerns. So then when you look at all the other factors, so you are correct. You're talking about building 23, 24, 25. 1 and 3 may not be close to them, but building 20 is, building 200 is. Those buildings that do meet the old Varney Center, which the roof is wide open, there's huge holes in the Varney Center. Those are all areas that tenants have to traverse every day. And my main job is to make sure that your tenants have a safe house or apartment that they can live in. And just because you are making an effort, unfortunately those issues are still there.
Okay, excuse me, we have, yes.
I'd like to suggest that they keep the occupancy in building 15, 19, 1, and 3. Okay, like you said, there is a hallway there from 14 to 15. And, okay, it wouldn't be that hard. I've done it before. They make fireproof 2x4s and Visqueen. And actually, they do work. Because I threw one in a burn barrel just to see. I wanted to test it. So if they could put up like a fire door. What's a fire door, 3 hours?
There's all kinds of, 3 hours is the longest.
Is the most, okay. You know, and block off that hallway. You know, keep that occupancy. I don't want to throw people out in the street.
Right.
Thank
you know,
you.
You know, that's,
That's what I'm.
Well, our
afraid
job
of.
is not to.
no, I understand that,
Thing
but
about,
if,
anytime we've had to do this, and it's only been 1-2 other times that we've had to deal with this, the city, it's not gonna be immediate, they're gonna have 30 days, the city's going to assist them, we're going to help find places for them. We don't just throw them out, we
I
never have.
understand, but-
Yeah, we never have, I mean, we
And-
will
Okay.
assist them the best we can.
Yep. And the other thing to think about is, yes, you are correct, they could do a fire door, but I have no idea what's in that crawl attic above. Are there fire stops? We've not been in there. So,
There's not.
it's- no, so if the fire got into the roof, it would just,
sure it would.
There's zero protection there right now.
Okay,
And when you talk about having their alarm system, the only bit of protection to get these folks that are sitting over here out and give them enough time in a fire is that alarm system.
oh, no, and that's gotta be
But
up.
what I'm saying is you got a building that's unprotected, no sprinkler, no fire breaks, no anything, as old as it is. And we've had fires up there before in the history where we lost the entire building. These are the folks that we worry about right here. And if
Absolutely.
it's gonna run across that, just Rich actually I couldn't say it any better than what Rich did. It's in the attic, runs all the way across there, and we have problems.
I would
Then,
think then, oh, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, then, the only one that, to me, would be a problem is building 15. 19, you could block that off, because it's at the end. 19, you could block it off,
the roof is not.
Oh.
and 19, the only roof would be
Right. But
in that
19,
hallway or walkway through there. And then the other two are contained.
but keep in mind also that 19 now has no fire protection.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
you gotta have, that's the one that I'd give them 30 days or 60 days, whatever you want.
They've had since August.
But now we wanna close them all. Well, I'd like to see, keep at least those 3 open.
Okay, so we
May I
have a
add-
motion and
Yes.
second.
May I add one more thing?
Is it time for the?
May I add
Yes,
one more?
one more.
We have no will or interest or intention to harm any tenant, and we also don't have any will or intention to go broke and sell the building to another person that will have to deal with the same issues again and again. So we love the building, we love the city, and we do our best to protect the tenants. We've been working together closely over the last few months. We already did a big change in the management. We got rid of the whole body of employees that have been handling the property. We're intending to work closely on getting all the buildings up to code, but I don't think it would be fair to put the people out on one side and put more load financially on the property, because if this happens for a whole year, we cannot survive, and somebody else is gonna pick up the property and they're gonna get stuck in the same loop over and over again. We have the will and the intention to bring it up to code.
And our board has a motion and a second, so I want to take that back to the
I
board.
apologize.
Okay,
Thank you for
Thank you,
doing that.
yes. So, I want to take this back to the board. Do we want to remain with the motion and the second and take a vote? Based on the motion we were given?
Yeah.
Will you please repeat what you had suggested? The revocation for one year?
One
Motion-
year.
It was a revocation for 1 year.
Yes. Okay.
All the buildings, Bob?
Occupancy
Well, the ones
permit.
that Rich deems are habitable or are up to code, they can rent, but everything else, I'll leave that up to Rich's discretion to revoke their permit.
There's none up to go.
So there-
That's code.
None of
them.
There's
That's
more, so
everybody.
That's all of them. So